And now Sarah's joined us. Hi, Sarah. It's good to see you. So thank you for joining me on the skin conditions, because actually I worked with you too on your hands, didn't I?
Yeah.
So it's great that you've joined me. Do you want to tell me a little bit about, because not everybody has seen the testimonial that you've done, I don't suppose. It was only yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So I came to Rachel when I'd been struggling with what I believe was dermatitis on my hands. I've been prone to that over the years, and it's flared up, and then I've treated it and it's settled down. But then I had a big life change back in 2017. I got divorced. It was quite traumatic. And then I discovered I was getting a lot of inflammation on my hands. It kind of flared up, and then it stayed. It wouldn't go. And I'd gone to the GP to get sort of standard treatment, which is steroid cream and emollient cream, and just to keep the inflammation down. And I kept doing that, and nothing was budging it. It wouldn't settle down, and it turned from an acute problem into a chronic issue. And periodically I went back to the GPs, and they gave me other steroid creams, because I have a quite bad reaction to some of the steroid creams. It seemed to make it worse, not better. And that's how it's been going on since up to the point when I worked with Rachel. It was I think we worked it out, didn't we, Rachel? It was something like
2017, about 5 years, wasn't it?
About 5 years.
Right, yeah.
And there was no sign of it improving. In fact, if anything, it was getting worse. And then I eventually found a steroid cream that had a compound antibiotic as well that was more tolerable. So I was using that. And at that point, I'd also, because it was so painful and so irritable, I was actually scratching a lot as well. I was doing that in my sleep. So it sort of morphed from an acute flare-up to a chronic skin problem that was just proving impossible to shift with normal means. And I was also, because I was aware that it was a possible stress response as well. So I've been doing a lot of stress management techniques, and I've been meditating regularly in that time as well, since my divorce. But so I was looking after myself emotionally as best I could, and managing stress and all of that, and it was still not getting a resolution, still no end to it. Was getting really depressing, because the skin on my hands was becoming there's a lot of scar tissue, and I was actually scratching it when I wasn't realizing as well. And it was, the worst thing about it though was that it was very, very painful. And to the point where the last GP appointment I had, they were concerned it might be something called psoriatic arthritis, which is a sort of joint-based and skin-based sort of autoimmune condition. So because that's what it was presenting like. And in fact, a relative of mine, my sister, who's a physio, she said, "Oh, Sarah, that rash looks like something that's a bit more serious. I think you definitely need to look into that a bit more deeply." So the GP did. I'm sort of still waiting for results and things like that. But basically, in that time, that's when I worked with Rachel as well, and we had an RTT session.
Mm-hmm.
And literally from the session, we got to root causes, which was quite interesting. And I do a lot of this work as well with other people, but working on yourself is a little bit more tricky sometimes. So Rachel was able to see some connections and some relevant things that were possible root causes, and was able to work with me in RTT. And then that evening, I went to bed, and I woke up and my hands felt 100% better in the morning. And it's like I could feel that they'd actually stopped hurting. And
it must have been such a big relief after 5 years of having that pain in your head all the time, trying to sort of push past it and try and ignore it. And
absolutely, it was just something I kind of got used to, and that's not good, is it? But I kind of got used to it.
It's amazing.
And suddenly it stopped. It was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to feel like, because there was such a lot of irritation. It was so sore. I was adding to the problems by the scratching as well. It was just a mess. And psychologically, I was feeling really bad because my hands looked bad as well. And I thought, they're actually aging.
Let's have a look. Give us a.
Well, I've got blue nails on at the minute.
I don't worry about that. We're not going to bring that.
I've just put some cream on. You can see where the damage is, because it was really weird as well. It was over the knuckles, and it was all of that hand, and there was a few fingers on this hand, and so you can still see the lumpy bits. I call them lumpy bits. There's no pain there at all, and that, to me, is a major breakthrough, because it was unbelievably painful at times. It was either more or less painful, but I was never completely pain-free with it. And that's why I was a bit worried it was affecting my joints as well, because it was really painful. And it's just, so I'm expecting the horrible bits of skin to eventually sort themselves out. I think they'll take a little while to get back to normal, but the pain stopped, and that's massive. That means I'm less likely to scratch it or do anything like that. And
you look lighter as well. You look like you're not, it's not weighing you down anymore, is it? I guess that's what it is.
It's just lovely. It's just nice not to have, it's like when it stops, it's just the relief of something horrible stopping is just really nice. It's like, yes, I think we've dealt with this, because I literally tried everything, and it was amazing. So if anyone else is sort of, because I think skin does react to emotional stress. It's the biggest organ on our body,
and the only visible one, really.
And there's a flare up of any kind, it becomes. And I know people who do have eczema and dermatitis and other skin conditions, maybe like psoriasis, that does flare when there's stress. And there's a limit to how much stress you can do. I did everything. I did the meditation, I did stress management, I put myself first, my well-being. I was making decisions about that all the time. And what it came down to was, I had quite a tough childhood. I won't go into the details. It was really tough, a lot of stress. And because of that, there was a root cause there. It was actually trying to help me out.
Very often these things do. They're there to sort of protect you and nurture you, and like, will you please look at the plane I'm in? That kind of thing. That's generally what I found with skin conditions. So yeah, it's really good. So thank you so much for joining. It's been absolutely wonderful that you just happened to pop on as we're talking about skins. That's great.
Yeah, well, I got a notification. I thought, oh, it's Rachel. I'll have to pop in and go and see.
So good on Facebook. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think that's, if anybody's got any questions, then please feel free to pop them in the comments below or message me privately. But yeah, and I love working with skin because it shows the difference between, because you can have anxiety, someone can be like looking worried and then they're out shopping looking happy. It doesn't really prove anything. But when you've got actual skin before and after, and I don't know whether you saw a minute ago, Sarah, did you see that picture of Sarah's hands? I had to take her to a future self because she really did not believe that it was ever going to go. And that was yesterday, and already you can see it scabbing over. It's not active anymore, and she knows it because she's like you. Oh, that pain's gone. That pricking feeling is gone. It's not there anymore, and so she's just so happy. It's brilliant. It really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that didn't just take one session. It was about four or five. Can't remember.
It's amazing, and yeah, it's the most clear example that something's not right, and our bodies really are very wise, and they'll tell us when something's not right. And when modern science fails to come up with a solution, you know, because I struggle with that. I do believe in medicine, and I do believe in GP care. I'm not anti-science at all. I kept up with the same regime that I found worked best, but it was Rachel's work that made the difference. Yeah.
And I've also worked with Julia Callan. I do talk about her book quite a bit, Soul Speak, and she talks about how everything is emotional. It doesn't matter whether it's blurred vision or cataract or fluid build-up, whatever it is, it's all emotional, because it's your body's. We store emotions in different parts of our body, and it's just that your body, it's like trapped wind, it hurts. So it's your body going, look, you suppressed this so far, so much, will you please just take a look, like a warning light on a dashboard of a vehicle.
It's like a call for help.
It is a call for help. It's like a flag waving, please can you just address what's going on.
And I think what Rachel helped me to do is to sort of get into a body dialogue, a conversation with what was really going on. And people might think that's really woohoo, but seriously is all the parts of us that existed when we were little are still inside. You know, there's still, that little girl was still there.
That's why the inner child works so well. And as well, it's when you've got that feeling that you've not listened to or not heard, that part sort of gets fragmented a little bit, don't they? Sort of get into the corner and just feel like they're wounded. And so that's where these parts play, and it's all perfect natural. We're not talking about schizophrenia here, we're talking about a natural thing where we all have different parts that play different roles. That anger that is you, there's a role for that. The wounded part, there's a role for that. What is it about? I can't sleep, what's that about? There's loads of different things. We all think it's our personality, but actually it's a response to trauma and those old beliefs. So, you know, people say, oh, I've always been scared of whatever, but actually there's something going on, there's a trauma response to it, and so that you can release it. It's beautiful. And I love the work we do because it's just so empowering, and you never know where you're going to go, do you? It's really quite exciting.
It is, and I think we spend a lot of time sort of getting down on our bodies, you know, getting cross and frustrated, but actually that if anyone loves us, it's our body. It's trying to help us all the time, even when it feels like it's causing the most annoying problems or worse. It's actually trying to help. And that's a big shift in understanding and awareness. But I highly recommend Rachel, because she really, honestly, this is something that evaded my, because I do similar work, and I couldn't get a resolution on this, and it was a puzzle, and it was like, what on earth is going on with this? And I think I think that little part of me just needed that extra reassurance, and Rachel was able to bring that into the session, and it was a really really compassionate, kind, gentle inquiry. There's nothing traumatic about it. So if anybody's worried about it sort of opening up a can of worms, it's a very gentle process.
Yes, it is. And I think as well, you've already lived whatever it is that you've lived through. It's just about reviewing it so that you can put it to bed. It's just reviewing it and letting it go, not holding on to it. And that's what the beauty is. And we don't know what we're holding on to. I was talking to a client earlier this morning, and she's like, I feel really good, actually. I'm quite happy. She was painting when we got there this morning in her own house. And before that, she'd be, no, I've got to go outside. I can't be in my own house. If the kids aren't here and there's not stuff going on, I've got to be somewhere else. And she's like, I'm painting. I thought, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? She said, why? I said, well, you couldn't have done that before. And she was like, oh, yeah, I couldn't. I never, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. And so when you, but she said, didn't really think that what we went back to was actually the root, but it's still whatever. You don't know what you don't know. You're holding on to stuff you don't really know. It's called subconscious mind because it's below consciousness, so you don't know what you're holding on to, and whatever you've gone back to that's stopping you. And that's the beauty of uncovering it, and you'll let your mind do the work. It doesn't even feel like what you've got your eyes closed. You're relaxed. It's just letting your mind do it.
Being on an automatic pilot, isn't it, when you're in a session, and it's just because your subconscious mind is so powerful, it can work things out, it can make the connections and bring it to your awareness. And I think when we say subconscious, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're unaware, that there's some awareness we have got and there's some awareness we haven't got, because obviously when there's something really annoying like these, that's a clear signal that it's very much active. It's not an inactive thought, it's an active belief and thought that's still ongoing. It's just looking for a resolution.
Yeah, and rewiring those old thought patterns, that's all it is. And that sounds like a bit hard, but it isn't. It's just because you're in your subconscious mind, it's just thinking about something a different way and rewiring that old thought so that you feel more empowered and less disempowered. And it is beautiful, and it's why I love what I do, and I could talk about it all day, quite honestly, because it's just great, isn't it?
It is. And I'm just I mean, I've been doing this work for a long time, and the kind of breakthroughs that we get with doing this kind of work, it's like nothing should surprise us anymore. But I was like, whoa, still amazed, because it was such a difficult thing for me to overcome on my own. Yeah,
it is. That's it. You just need that guide to help you go where you need to be, with a non-judgmental space, with that compassion and understanding, and just asking the right questions of like, isn't that interesting, because you thought that and now this is happening, and it's just looking at it that you couldn't consciously do that simultaneously yourself. So it's just, that's curious, isn't it? And I'm looking for patterns that have happened then that are like now. Like the client the other day was like, I still feel trapped. I'm like, that's interesting. You felt trapped when you were 5 and you're still feeling that trapped. And it's linking those sort of old patterns together, and like, okay, let's have a look at it and release it. And it's just fabulous. I love it.
And
really empowering.
And it's something you can do alongside normal GP. But I'm going to see my GP about this, and I'll have a conversation.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And say, yes, of course it's stress based. They acknowledge that, things like this flare when it's when there's stress. GPs do understand that stress hormones create physical reactions. But of course, we're lucky in the UK. We have the NHS. They can write a prescription for things, but we don't necessarily have the emotional support that's required to help people with unless things are very, very bad. But for something like skin complaints, that's pretty much run of the mill, isn't it? It's sort of like, you've got a bit of a rash, but it can have a big impact. So if anybody's struggling with chronic skin condition that's really painful, it can really get you down when you're not getting any resolution on it. So definitely look into root causes.
Yes. Then it's a thing of the past. It's something you used to have, and it doesn't have to take long either. When you get to the root, you've just released it. It just was something that was a problem, and it isn't anymore. I really do believe that life's for living and not therapy.
Absolutely. And I think as well, I think my boyfriend's relieved about it, because it was a bit awkward to hold hands. He's very patient, he's very kind and everything, but I always used to make sure I held hands on this side because this hand wasn't as bad. And it was affected. There was
affects everything, doesn't it? How you hold the pen, the whole thing
about yourself sometimes.
And you're a musician as well, so it must have affected how you play.
Yeah, not so much my flute, but I'm a saxophone player as well. So there's a lot of, and at times it was really painful. And of course, if you're doing, you know, your hands are on show, so it makes you feel really self-conscious as well. And especially when they were really flaring, it was like I'd keep my hands out of sight, but when you're playing, you can't. And it was just, I was just self-conscious about it, and it was painful. Yeah, and then the stress of doing of playing in front of an audience probably made it worse as well.
Yeah,
so
you're doing it now without a flare-up, which is great. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Sarah, and for being in this group. It's really awesome to see you, and it's fabulous that you just popped on and joined in. So thank you so much again.
So welcome.